All right, here we go. Finally got the armature assembly in the field. Just came tonight. Oddly, it was delivered at 10 p.m. But these are the last two pieces I was waiting for. So hopefully that's exactly what I was waiting for. So this is really odd because this is the field, this is the shell to the motor, and this is the cabling. And if you were to look this up on the website, this and this would all be sold separately. What I did order was this piece, which is what I should have gotten. And then hopefully this other piece, I hope this is what it's supposed to be, but it doesn't feel as heavy as it should be. Guess I'm fine. Okay, we're good. This is what I was expecting. It's all nice and pretty. I just had to put the bearings on it. In all actuality, they made this easier for me by sending me this entire thing. I'll definitely contact them to let them know this isn't what I ordered, and got a little bit more than I should have. This is really weird because this is saying the field and the armature assembly are the only two things. So maybe all three of these things are one. But when I did look it up on the website, this cable was a separate price, the field was a separate price, and the casing was a separate price. At least I can get the planer put back together. All right, so here are the old components. You got the armature assembly right here, the field, the motor casing, and then this is the cable that connects everything. This is the new armature assembly, and then I ordered the field, which is this white portion right here, but it actually came with the electrical cable and the casing. And I'm kind of glad that it did come this way, because one of the issues with the field is these had come all separate. There you go. I would have been able to connect this portion of it, and then it would have had to go up like this and then into the casing. But if you look down inside there, you can see there's a connector there and a connector there. So the issue would have been getting those two connectors on to these 2 points right here. The fact that they sent it to me this way makes it a whole lot easier on me. I don't need to worry about trying to connect those. These are the original bearings on the armature assembly. I did order new ones for this one. All right, time to put the new armature assembly back in. Good thing is I don't have to remove these bearing sets on this one, because I have two new sets, and these will go on here, and this one right here will need to go all the way down to here, and this one here will need to go all the way to here. So what I have is some different sockets that hopefully will help me put these bearing sets where they need to be. So so that one's on where it needs to be. Now this one needs to be put on. Now it's going to have to go all the way to where my fingernail is right there. 1/8 of an inch. Comparing the new one to the old one, the new bearing sets are where they're supposed to be. This is a new set of brushes, and one thing I wanted to point out, since I mentioned it previously, is that these brushes are serrated, and I thought it was kind of odd that they were serrated on the old one, but the new ones come like that. So I guess that's the way that it's supposed to be. The new armature assembly is going to go in with this end down, and I'm going to attempt to put it straight in as much as possible. Watch out for, when you get a new one of these armature assemblies, is the glue, because there was some glue that was all over it where it probably shouldn't be. So I would just check it to make sure you don't have a bunch of it all over the armature assembly. Armature assembly is inside the field, inside the motor casing, with both bearing sets. The one bearing set towards the back, and then one up here towards the front. Put this plate on, which seats this bearing set that's right here. Then once this is on, I'll put the 4 screws with washers on, and then I'll put the fan on. And when you put the fan on, the large fins go to the outside, the smaller ones go to the inside. And then once the fan is on, I'll put a washer and a nut on that. In order to get the bearing set to seat in here, what I'll use is a large socket to tap it on. This is something I just noticed. This is the one that was just sent to me, and I noticed that right here is cracked. I don't think it's going to have any impact, and I hope it doesn't, because that would suck. Since this one's in pretty good shape, but I don't want to have to switch them out. I got a little carried away with trying to get this plate on. Forgot to turn the camera on. But so I tried using this method to get the plate to seat onto the bearings, and it kind of worked, but it was actually just easier going around tapping it and then looking at the edge to see where you needed to hammer some more. And it's on there now, and it spins pretty freely. So now I'll put the washers and screws in it. When I go to tighten all these 4 screws all the way down, I'm not going to tighten them all the way down at once. I'm going to, rotate it around to make sure that I'm seating the plate in its final position properly. And it looks like it's on there seated pretty good. I don't really see any space or gap in between here except in this one spot. The casing is broke, but it looks like it's seated pretty good. Before I put this fan on, I gotta put this fan shroud back on, which is 3 cross-tip screws that go on right there. Before I put the fan back on, I'm going to take advantage of the ability to put this large crescent wrench here on this armature assembly shaft, which will allow me to hold this in place while I put this belt pulley back on. This pair of slip joint pliers. Alright, so belt pulley is on. Now put the fan on. Big fins out, small fins to the inside, washer and nut. I believe this is a 1/2 inch nut, if I remember correctly. Alright, everything's on there. Sounds like it's spinning freely as it should. The one thing I do want to do before completely assemble the planer is I want to be able to test this motor before it's all set up, because I'd hate to have to disassemble everything over again just because something on the motor isn't functioning correctly. So I'll get it partially put back together so that I can at least know for sure that the motor is going to work when it needs to work. Kind of odd that they sent me the engine or motor casing, which I didn't order, but they did send it to me, and unfortunately it didn't come with the caps, so I had to take the caps off the old one. But at least I have the caps so I can use them. And I'm putting these new brushes in. Alright, so that's as far as I can go with the motor. Now I just need to get it set up to test it to make sure that it works. It's not screeching, it's not grinding, or doing anything else that it shouldn't be doing. You can look these up, but if you want the fan, the part number is N578650. They do claim that these are DeWalt genuine parts, and that's for the fan. Don't do like I did and think you're only going to get one brush, so I put 2 and I ended up with 4 brushes. But the brushes are N578672, and then the bearing sets, which do come in a pack of 2, is N597691. Alright, so here's the fun part. I'm going to test the motor, and I needed the upper cover of the planer, and because it has parts and pieces in it that I need, and I don't necessarily need the rest of the planer at this point just to test the motor. And so this is my old cable, and luckily I numbered these so that I know how all these need to be connected to the switch. Getting ready to test the motor, make sure it works before I reassemble everything, but what I do need to do is make sure that it is grounded. So I've got to ground this wire to this plate. installing it. So that's grounded. Got everything connected here. Got these grounded to each other. Got the circuit switch connected. And also have the safety switch connected as well, which will be required in order to test the motor. Here goes the test, just to see if the motor works. I'm going to hold this down while I turn the power on and engage the safety switch. So there is the test. There is a slight burning smell. I'm hoping that is something that just comes with everything being newly put together, because definitely don't want to have to buy any more parts or replace this. Reinstalling the motor, and there are 4 Allen bolts with washers, and there's a guide pin on the bottom plate here. So there's a guide pin here, and then there's also supposed to be a guide pin on here, and luckily I caught it before I put it on, because these guide pins, I'm sure, are very important to ensure that the motor is sitting where it needs to be in order to drive the belt correctly. If it's cocked, then it's probably just going to shred the belt. So on the old casing, the other pin is still in it. So take that off. Put it that in there. I did clean this up, but the sawdust just keeps coming from everywhere. Something's not lining up right. So on the new housing, this hole right here isn't even threaded yet. So what I'll probably do is just take it off, get the threading started, because trying to get it threaded while it's sitting on here like this is going to be nearly impossible. So I'll just take it off and get it started, because it has no threading whatsoever. I'm going to put this on its side just to make it a little easier. 2x4 block of wood is great for setting it on its side. We got the 4 screws here. These Allen bolts are a little impossible. You don't really have the space to put the Allen wrench like this unless you want to make little quarter turns for the next 5 minutes per bolt. And doing it like this, you just don't have the leverage for tightening. So it's actually easier. Got this little Craftsman ratchet that you put bits on. So this will make it easier to put these on. Again, I'm not tightening these down all the way at one time. I just did this top one here, doing this bottom one here. Then I'll go back to the top here and then down to the bottom over here until it's ready to be completely tightened down. Right now I don't have these tight at all. I'm just getting them down to the surface. Alright, so they're all the way to the surface. Now I just need to tighten them down. So go ahead and start with this last one. And you got to be careful not to tighten these too far down because the housing on the motor is plastic. So you could rip right through the threading. So those are all tightened down. I'm doing all this work in a very cramped shed. Way too much stuff and not any room to do any work, so I gotta shift everything around in order to do the work that needs to be done. So now what I'm going to do is put the drive belt on. If you haven't had to purchase one of these, you'll be surprised how much they are. I think it was like $50-something just for this belt. So gonna have to put the belt on from pulley on the motor down to the pulley on the blades. So what needs to be done is take this idler off again. You can take either one of these sprockets off. Really doesn't matter which one it is. So the best way to do this is get the belt through this portion, the upper portion, and on the pulley. Then you have to slowly, well, you're going to have to slowly maneuver the belt onto the pulley. And again, in order to turn the pulley, you've got to reach over here, push this down, or this pulley is not going to turn, so you have to push that down or put something on it, which is what I'm going to do right now. Alright, so I've got a hammer sitting over there holding that down so that I can put the belt on. And you can't just shove this belt on. What you have to do is gradually turn the pulley wheel, and then at the same time push the belt to the inside on this top one. I gotta get over one more. There we go. All right, now I need to get it. All right. It's on. Definitely got to watch your fingers on this one. You could pinch them in quite a few places, but it's on there where it needs to be. Now I can put everything else back on, so it should go right back on without any issues, but it's not. The roller on this side is not going to move, but this one over here does move. So this one drives this one. So when you put this on, put this side on first, and then you can turn that one to where you need it. So you're going to put this idler back on, hook it back onto the spring, put the screw in, but make sure your little idler wheel is sitting on the chain, in the center of the chain. And take your cross tip and tighten it. That's tightened. Spring loaded, forces the chain to be tight. That is all done.